Oh, what's good? What's good? What's good? Let's see. We got this over here. We got that going on. So we got a lot of stuff going on. So peace, everybody. So I misplaced my doohickey. Oh, there it is. I got it. Okay. So peace. Let me know if you can hear me before we kind of get into this. So this will be kind of nice on this nice morning. So just give me a thumbs up or whatever. So let me know to make sure that we are. Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. Cool. So y'all can hear me. So that's what's up. So we're gonna as we usually do, we're gonna connect and vibe. But today, what I want to do is woo, what I want to do is tap into the elements of attraction. Talk about what we're attracted to, or what might attract to us, or what resistance that we might experience. At the end of the day, what is inevitable across the board is that we all are attracted to something. We all attract things to us, and we all resist things, and things have resistance against us. And so we roll that over into relationships that plays a constant as a constant inside relationships. Now, I just released a book called Elements of Attraction. So a lot of you will be hearing me talk a lot about the element psychology inside the Living Soul Numerology System. If you just want an easy template to understand, like, why I keep attracting all these things, or why it's like these kind of people always attract to me, or why I'm always attracted to this, or why do I always experience this certain type of resistance, or why is this particular attraction pattern always existent? This is the book for you. This ebook is visual, it's very easy to go through, and you can go right through it and begin to journal and to decode your attractions. Okay, so some of you know I also released a book earlier this year called Elements of Us. So you're going to find out that there's a wide range of body of work that can help you understand yourself, help you understand others, and so forth. For some of you that want to get some insight into this unique numerology system, this principle based soul system, let me know. We actually have trainings and, just immersions with that to help get you to understand your soul codes, how to operate, and so forth. Okay. So, with that in mind, I'm going to start doing some live shows to profile individuals or the relationship based out of the elements of attraction, so you can understand like how this, because this book is really a tool. Okay, and so something you can constantly go back to and look, but most importantly is help you understand yourself and understand kind of you know what you lead with in a relationship, or what you desire, what you bring. So it's a lot, when you have understanding, there's a little more fluidity, there's more tolerance, there's more longevity, there's more alignment. And that's what in the day this will come down to is, am I properly aligned with the right individual or individuals that you're engaging? Okay. So, peace. So go ahead and feel, free to drop some your thoughts and stuff as you get into this. So what I'm doing, let everybody realize, because I can do these anonymous elements of attraction readings for you. And what you can do is you either can call my number 1-844-5 wisdom and just send a text there with your date of birth, and you'll be on the list for me to do certain shows. Or you can email wisdomtherapeutics1@gmail.com. Okay, and just do that, and we'll be able to rock out there. And some of you that want to get more connected to the body of work and you're in life transitions, or you're trying to understand yourself, understand what's going on, and you want a good template for all aspects of life beyond relationship, money, um, understand yourself, understand, just having a good all around support, wellness. I invite you to join our Soul House, and you can go to my YouTube channel links and go right there and join the Soul House, and we welcome you. So a lot of times when we're especially in life transitions, we're trying to work in something and work out of something, and that doesn't happen just in a short time frame. So you need a environment, you need an access to a level of insight information, so you can cycle in and cycle out at your own ability to browse in terms of what you need. And so that's what we're providing inside the Soul House. And then we also have, certain meetups. So with that in mind, just connect. All right. And so, but what I want to do is get into the elements of attraction. We're going to do it around the soul code number 9764. Okay. And again, some of you just chiming in. My name is Juros, Satori Seals. Some of y'all know me as Satori Juro Seals. Some people know me as Juro Seals, but we go by Satori Seals. Now, what we're doing is going from a metaphysical approach. So this is a non-biased assessment. Now, do I know this individual? Yes, I know this individual, but I'm being non-biased. I'm just going based off what the numbers are going to, off the elements that are going to read, what's going to show about this individual in terms of their elements of attraction and what they attract. So they might be on, they can kind of share feedback, like if that's spot on or whatever. So what we're going to do is tap in. So there's 5 elements, okay? And we recognize them as soul elements. So you have the earth, wood, you have the water, you have the metal, you have the air, and you have the fire, okay? And all of these elements show key aspects or key angles or key reflections or represent certain forces behind the relationship that none of us are exempt from. Some of us have more of an element operating, some have less, some are just in a nice median line. And this individual right here, she has 3 elements that are pretty much balanced out, but she does have 2 dominant elements that jump out. So as I go into this, we're going to base her numbers off of what the Elements of Us Attraction book is revealing. So some of you are just chiming in, you can get the book and begin to interpret and break down the things right now, just as I'm doing. Now, I might go a little more advanced into some stuff probably as I flow, because of just my versatility inside understanding the system. But the book is going to give you the baseline and the basis of what I'm really coming from right now. Okay, a piece. So again, this person's soul code or soul numbers, there's 4 numbers. Her numbers are, and this is a woman, is 9764. Okay. And so we're going to talk about the energies. You'll hear me talk about gender energy. So the gender energies are masculine, androgynous, and feminine. The energy takes position. All those energies can take a position. Okay. And that could be dominant, neutral, or submissive. Now, what I'm doing is I'm going to reveal what her energy hierarchy is. So what that refers to is what type of energetic structure, type of relationship that's more that's more complementary for her to really to flow, and and to be at her maximum, right? To be at her height of emanating of who she really is. Now, what's interesting is that she is dominantly a masculine. She's a woman, but she has dominant masculine energy. Now, so the gender energy side shows the relationship energy structure. The energy position side reveals to us the type of how it would express itself inside a relationship, or what it would seek to position itself. And so she's an equal split between dominant and neutral, but 0 in submissive. So what does that translate as? Well, first of all, this individual, her, she values structure. She values a sense of direction, but she also values adaptability and some type of flexibility, but not to the point where the direction is compromised. So she needs to understand. So this individual right here is more, they need things defined in a direction in terms of where it is going. And when it has that, it's a little more open to be flexible. Now, I mentioned about the dominant position that it has. Now, interesting, when we look at the numbers, you go deeper, this individual probably wrestles with um, adaptive authority, or us, no, sorry, adaptive assertiveness. I'll say that. What that means is that even though they have dominance, they don't want to just always be asserting. They like to adapt or be situational or selective with it. Okay. And so a lot of times in relationships, so 1 minute they probably can give off mixed signals because 1 minute they had this dominant, this masculine energy, and it seemed like they just want to maybe possibly control or make decisions or set what the agenda is. But then the same time is they just fall back, and all of a sudden it's like they're detached from that desire. And so if that person's not really aware of that, that can kind of be coming on inside that relationship. But the reason why is because when you look at their gender energy position in the mix of everything else that I'm looking at, it just lets you realize that they are adaptive assertive. They're not just strongly assertive. So they're adaptive assertive. And so that probably can miss signals. And also, so the assertiveness of them is very diluted. They're not always just going to jump and steer the ship. They typically, once they know what's going on or when they see what's happening, then all of a sudden they want to be assertive. But they're not going to just maybe jump in and create and initiate the assertiveness. Once they see certain things happening and going, then they probably want to jump in and exercise that level of assertiveness. Okay. Um, Also, with this, when we look at, when we look at even more, so again, so the energy hierarchy is masculine. So they have a lot of that kind of going on. Um, but what's very important about this individual, they need to be a part of something definitive, whatever that might be. When it's not there, um, they're probably liable to start shift into, um, they're probably liable to shift more into some shadows. Okay. Now, when we look at that, again, in terms of reviewing it from the gender energy and energy position, the submissive score is zero. Now, the good thing, because they have um, a balanced score inside the neutral, they can be submissive, okay? But it's, again, it might cause confusion in relationships because they do have this masculine aura on them. And so, and then the same time is they're not really trying to initiate all the time, but yet they're masculine. So this individual, in terms of shadow activity, they probably bring a lot of confusion in relationships, understanding like I can't really get a pulse on what you want, and then definitely on what you need. So this person, so rolling that from what I just said right there, now we go into their soul elements where we're gonna start diving in. And so their soul elements, one of their lower scoring elements is, I mean, it's a balanced score, is the air. So, and then also the water. So there's some emotional, communicative um, deliveries that might come from this person that might not really make sense to people that they're engaging, but might make sense to them. Okay. So what we're going to do is, and some of you that already have purchased the book, I appreciate it. Again, the book is called Elements of Attraction. Actually, inside the description, there's a link in there where you can get the book. So I thank you in advance. Um, um, Someone can, y'all can check into that. So now, what we do is, so when you go into the book, you look at it. What we're doing is we're going to look at the dominant elements, and we're also going to look at the weaker elements. So in this individual's scenario, is their two dominant soul elements are the metal and the fire. Okay, and so when you look at the metal and fire, first of all, let's realize is that this individual in relationships highly desire clarity. They love to feel dependent upon or something they can depend upon. They need inspiration. They need motivation. These are um, high things, and they need a level of high trust and also passion. So that's automatically just coming across right there when we look at that type of, that layer. Okay. And so that accountability piece is very important for them, but also a sense of achievement. So if they're in a relationship and the sense of achievement seems like it's not being met, they'll find themselves kind of disengaging. And that partly is coming from the fire, that dominance of fire. That fire needs that excitement. It needs that sense of momentum. Oh, we're going this direction right here. And so again, they need something constantly defined because they're not really trying to create their path, but they wanted a path that's defined for them to follow the path, and then they can ignite it. Okay. And so in a relationship, they really probably attract to individuals that are ambitious, highly visionary, very directive, because they have no problem with that. And then once they have that, then all of a sudden it activates them to be even more assertive. And this means start seeing their sense of leadership and them trying to move forward and everything and so forth. So they need that type of that type of dynamic with them for them to really be fully in their ultimate selves. Okay. And so with that in mind, so when we think about that, yeah, so we think about the high accountability, the achievement, a sense of momentum, sense of direction, things being very objective. Okay. And so this is another person, we look at their numbers, we look at the gender energy, the energy positions, and then you look at when you look at their numbers, you put it all together, they don't do very well in highly opinionated type of relationships. But on one end, they probably can find themselves engaging in overly criticalness, due to the metal and due to the weak submissive. So it's almost, but that's not their leading tendency. That tendency will typically come if they're not getting what they think they want. The problem is they probably are weak at communicating what they want. And so when that happens is you start seeing this shadow aspect of them being overly critical and in some aspects being defiant. Because when you have no submissive score, you can easily become very defiant. And so again, all this is being revealed in a direct or indirect way through the Elements of Attraction book that just was released. Okay. So let me know if this is still making sense to everybody. All right. So we're talking about um, their two dominant soul elements, which is the metal and the fires. This is about this individual. It's a woman. Okay. And again, I want to say, let me say this because I love always making mention of this because people get caught up in, well, the woman's too much in her masculine, the woman's too much. There's women with strong masculine energy and they're still a woman. There are men that have strong feminine energy and they still are men. It's how they go about expressing, how they go about executing things is where the difference might show. Okay. But it doesn't discredit what they really are as an individual. Okay. So I want to make sure we understand that we have to expand our understanding and not just get caught up in the basic talking points, what masculine is and feminine is, because then it becomes almost inaccurate in terms of we start understanding the energetics that are at play with it. Okay. And that's very clarified inside the Living Soul Numerology System. That's one of the things, early things we try to get across to everybody. And so when you get into the books, Elements of Us, if you get the book Foundation of Soul Profiling, things like that, you'll begin to understand those things. Okay. So this individual, now let's talk about their resistance, because when we have attractions, we have possibly resistance. So when we look at her numbers and we look at the resistance and we kind of explore where her weaker elements are. And her weaker elements are the earth, wood, the air, and the water. Okay, so there's a triad there. And so there's more than likely where there's weak boundaries. So she, might wrestle with maintaining certain boundaries, even though that's a strength of hers, right? Or people coming up, people that might position her to compromise her boundaries. Matter of fact, that's probably one of her nemesis is that she might find herself getting into relationships where they are almost required for her to compromise her boundaries or compromise her stances or her principles of what is already clearly defined. Okay. And so, and that probably happens a lot just looking at their numbers. Um, they resist controlling environments. Um, but at the same time, they can attract controlling people. All the nuances of it all. Um, they this individual can find themselves looking at the number. They can find themselves getting into relationships and relationships or in environmental scenarios. If they don't really have their boundaries intact, they can find themselves getting personally overwhelmed because they might find themselves in story loops like, why I'm in this situation? Oh my God, this is going on. And I keep getting into this. I keep getting into this. I keep getting into this. All this is cycling around this weaker element triad that they have, which is the earth, wood, the air, and the water. And the reason why they might keep finding themselves, so why they got strong metal that really commands and has a standard, it's authoritative, its boundary is very precise, and they got the fire to keep everything moving in momentum. The problem is when you have a weaker water, water is a bonder. And so because of the dependent situation it is she might find an aspect in an environment, in a scenario, or in certain people that she feels she can bond to. And so because she lacks the emotional flexibility, at times in certain situations, then she might find herself staying in situations or getting into situations that can make her feel overwhelmed and make her feel flooded emotionally with inside herself. Okay. So again, like I said earlier, this individual is probably known, to in an intimate relationships, this person, looking at their numbers, is probably known to give a broadcast of mixed signals in a variety of different ways. But at the same time is their energy intelligence that they bring to a relationship is from the fire and the metal. So they bring the spark, or they keep the spark going, or they want to keep the spark going. And then also direction. So they want to support a direction, but then have moments where they feel like they are asserting and directing. So it's kind of funny because again, they're selective with that, but that's a part of them. Okay. And so this is, so when I look at this and when we start talking about, if we was to classify like uh, more enduring relationship tendency versus short-lived and so forth, we start getting to that. Because it's individual, it's kind of funny. It's selective. On one end, they can kind of stay locked into an environment, but they probably will find themselves tail spinning in and out of relationships a little bit more um, due to the fire piece, and with the earthwood and the water being a little more weaker. So it's not that this person is not relational. They're very relational. Actually, people enjoy when they engage with them, but they're very engaged, they're very enjoyable in a social thing. So relationship wise, this person is liable to all of a sudden become intimidating, not because of who they are, but because of the sense of definition starts to kick in even more because they want dependability. They want this level of prediction, the surety and things, but then at the same time is they want this level of flexibility. And so that can be very puzzling to somebody if they're not aligned with you. So this person in a lot of relationships will probably find themselves inviting a lot of misaligned people, but they will find the parts where they do align with. And so then they flow with it. The problem is though, when those parts are defining and it doesn't come out being highly defined, then they start realizing there's other things absent, and then all of a sudden the relationship starts to lose its, its fire or its holding interest. And so all of a sudden this person probably can start to dwindle and fade, and then they start projecting things that they might not bring, but they think they desire to have, or vice versa. Someone's responding, and so then it cancels the attraction. So let me say this: when we talk about attractions a lot, but what you really want is you want to convert your attraction into a resonance, and I cover that, um, in another book, Activate Your Lover. So you can check that out. So, but the attraction was get it all started. So this individual right here, because of the missignaling, They have to be realize either got to work at that, but also realize that this aspect in their energy, um, the activity comes from their energy when they're projecting. There's a lot of missignaling. And so it makes it a little more challenging. It's not saying it can't, it just makes it more challenging for someone to resonate with you quicker. They'll probably need more time to understand these other different nuances about you because there are a lot of qualities. For example, when we start talking about um, the feminine personas, and there's four. So we have four masculine personas that we go over. That some of y'all know I got my book. How these show up. I go over those four masculine personas, but there are also some feminine ones. And one of the feminine personas is a builder. And so this individual, this is the type of woman that you want to build with. This is the type of woman that will stay. She's that ride or die, stay true to what you have. So she gets rooted and planted. So she really wants all this definition because she's trying to figure out how to root it, how to keep it going and to keep it advancing. This is the perfect person for that. Now, the problem is sometimes men and their shadows, they don't really value this until later in their life, or men that more likely will appreciate this early on are the ambitious, but she attracts this and she's attracted to it. Confidence and ambition, that shows both really strong in the fire aspect and the metal aspect. So she has to make sure she doesn't compromise that. You need self-forward, self-directive, self-determined uh, individuals. That's what really gets you going. And they're more likely to resonate with you versus be attracted to you. If you resonate with you, the attraction is already there. So you have to move beyond getting the attraction and hooking the resonance. And hooking the resonance is realizing that you exude the builder qualities of the feminine personas. Um, I have another book that's out there, and it's called Brother Right Woman and Brother Wrong Woman. And of course, it's for the men, but women were tuning in to a lot of women that really connects with the works that I'm doing, which I appreciate. I keep trying to get y'all to understand. Y'all need to get that book yourselves too, because it gives you more insight and you kind of can see, where you're really aligned at and see, so, but this individual scores very high as a builder woman and is very attractive to a certain persona, energy aligned type of man. Okay. And so to me, it's a great thing. And me, I love, I enjoy, and I resonate with that, right? For me. Now, you have other masculine personas, I mean, other feminine personas that's at play, but she is just looking at this, she strongly favors the builder. I'm willing to do the grunt work and be right there. The problem with her is that she got to make sure, and she's very big about this with her metal, is the integrity. Make sure that she's not asking someone to recognize her. She wants to make sure it's in your character to position her when things pan out for her to be positioned. And that's that neutral part. So she's not commanding that. Some people, you need to communicate that. Well, she wants the sincerity. So why communicate that when that should be coming from the heart of a person sincerely? And so when she sees that response that in somebody, she's gonna latch into that and she's gonna connect with that and she's going to ride with that. That's a great quality. But I'm quite sure it probably brought or brings a lot of disappointments to her because unfortunately some people are not operating at a level of mindfulness. So that goes to the other part I want to put there is that even though she scores a one androgynous, but you scored um, decent in the neutral. This is where you might, appreciate the androgynous neutral qualities in individuals because they are more likely or submissive, but you might have a blind spot with recognizing submissive. So you might die submissive oriented type men, and I'm not talking about simps. Now I'm talking about, I ain't got time to break all that down, um, but probably what would really get you going or give you that insurance because you're always looking for that insurance because that sense that knack I want definition. This people that has that adaptiveness, that integrating, that when they speak, they talk about not just themselves, but how they make impacts with other people. Those people or those type of oriented people are the ones you need to really make sure you really connect and resonate with, because say things starts to pan out very well, they're not going to forget you, right? But if you choose people that don't exude that, then you probably have a lot of disappointments where you feel like you've been forgotten. So all of a sudden, this resentment and abandonment thing kicks in, the sense of rejection kicks in, and which is definitely inside your shadows. Okay. And that disorients you, and then it disinterests you from engaging in certain type of relationships. Okay. So let me know if this is still making sense. All this again is inside the book, Elements of Attraction. Okay. And if you want me to do your reading, just text 1-844-5-WISDOM, or you can email wisdomtherapeutics1@gmail.com. And I plan on doing shows with this. And so a lot of these episodes I'll go more into it. It'll be on the Patreon, also inside the Soul House. And so you have to be a member, you know, in those settings to get, the more breakdowns into this. Okay. So I'm just kind of just doing this right here. So as we look at her numbers as well, too. So let's look at what she's liable to attract, like what she constantly, um, what all just comes to her, you know, um, that might not be pleasant to her, but she sees it and she's like, why? You're probably like, why do I always keep getting these individual, these scenarios? So keep in mind, the attraction can be what you put off and what people are seeking they need. This is why I always say, everybody says like kinds of alike tracks, but there's also other aspects to attraction. Okay. And I go in detail now on audio that I have talking about the domains of attraction. But one aspect is we attract what we need. Okay. So we have to look at that. So she probably attracts these unfavorable attractions or these shadow attractions that she gets from people that constantly, she has to always weave through these individuals, and it's probably people pleasers. She probably attracts all these people pleasers, and it irritates her because she's not a people pleaser. You look at her numbers, but somehow she keeps attracting people pleasers. um she attracts emotional flooders, people that just want to flood out their emotions to her. She's not a very emotional woman, but then she'll attract these individuals that will flood, men and women, you know, that would just flood emotionally. So it's like people just feel comfortable flooding her with emotions. Okay. Um, she probably finds herself attracting a lot of moody people. And then one of the things is she probably definitely attract a lot of people that's victim energy. Something's always happening to them. Oh, woe is me. She might find herself, and she's not a victim oriented person, got her numbers, but somehow you probably attract this a lot. Okay. And that primarily connects to the air and water, um, weak, lower score in your air and water in your profile, but then also they attract to it because of the strength of your metal and your fire. Moody people, victim oriented people, they need something they can predict, something they can rely upon. And so you project a sense of reliability, dependability, a sense of, we can get through this. And so you'll find, unfortunately, find these unfavorable attractions coming to you, but it's because what you really have to offer. Okay. Um, so the other thing, these these disfavorable attractions, these shadows, like, why I keep dealing with this? So we told the people pleasers, um, they probably attract a lot of people that avoids death, right? They're very surface oriented people, very shallow people. This individual appreciates knowledge and all that, but somehow they keep getting individuals, and they might engage these individuals, but then find themselves when it gets to a certain knowledge threshold, having a certain capacity, that they start to avoid certain conversations, avoid certain topics, or they want to shift it more into the emotional association with it, so that way they don't have to go deep, they can escape. So you probably find a lot of people that wants to escape knowledge. And this person might find themselves naturally realize they want to inform and they want to inspire. And you might find people start want to dial back and cringe as soon as they start being more informational. And that's a nuance that this probably deals with. It's like when they find themselves becoming informational, because when they start getting supported, they become very informational. Well, you could do this, you could do that, you could do that. That assertiveness kicks in, right? You don't really see it if there's nothing clearly defined or a target there. You don't see the assertiveness in them. But all of a sudden, there's a target there and something defined. Oh, we could do this, you could do this, you do this. I know this information, I know this, I know this, I know this, I know this, and all that starts to kick in. But then the problem is the people that normally attracts to them, they don't want that. they avoid they avoid what? The depth. They're very shallow. So unfortunately, you find yourself inviting a lot of shallow people, and it probably drives you crazy. But it's not nothing personal to you. It's connected to what you have to offer, right? And so, because, well, how's that? Well, the metal is precise. So if there's anything that's complex, if the metal gets enough knowledge on it, it can divide it up. It can become very precise, and it can make sure it can get simple. Metal oriented people are not very complicated. They're direct. So, but they have an appreciation for complex things. They don't avoid it. So you see what I'm saying right there? But someone that's more emotionally or other client, they might avoid that. The metal people don't. They prefer the simplicity, but they don't avoid the complexity. So they'll take the complexity in order to simplify it. Okay. So once they simplify it, then it makes other people comfortable. So so in settings for you, you're the simplifier. So if you're doing business or anything, or something like that, you might serve a good role to simplify things for individuals that avoids death. And there's a lot of people for that. This is one of the struggles when you get into personal development, self-help or spiritual advisory, light work type of arenas, is that on the forefront, people are mesmerized by certain information, so they get all emotionally googly with it. But as soon as you start taking them to the reflective stuff, as soon as you start taking them to some depth and giving them some range, they check out. And so this is good for someone with a lot of metal, they might attract a lot of these people. They might seem like they're on board, they might seem like they're really on it, but as soon as, for like this, if you mishap and give them the complex, and not to be complex to you, but just complex to them, and that could be anything, then all of a sudden you see this avoidance kicking in. So you might see a lot of people that attracts to you, but then suddenly they have this avoidant quality. The avoidant factor that you might be experiencing is people trying to avoid the depth and the range of thinking that you might invite them into automatically, but you even trying to do it on purpose. So they're just trying to avoid that. Okay. And people with strong air might see that in people too. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things, but understand, you probably find that a lot. You find that in your attraction. And this book, Inside the Elements of Attraction, will help you kind of see that and navigate that. And you're like, oh, I see this here. I understand this here. Once you understand, you can navigate better, right? You can manage the situation better, or you know what to bring, or you know how to respond, right? Or you know what to veto, to say no or establish the boundary. Because here's another thing we talked about earlier that you wrestle with is weaker boundaries. Even though you have strong metal, you have resistance because that weaker water and that weaker earth, it causes your sense of boundary setting to possibly get compromised a little bit in relationship type settings. You don't like saying no, you know what I'm saying? So that comes into play. So this is one of those behavioral nuances that that you probably deal with on a regular. Okay. And so also, you probably bring about a lot of people. You probably see a lot of people have a lot of you attract to ambitious people, and you invite ambitious people, but then you realize that, well, how come they don't get shit done? Because they're overthinkers. So you might find yourself inviting a lot of overthinkers. And again, why? You're precise. You have an ability to take complexity, and you remove the excuses out the way for someone to overthink. Now, looking at your stuff, you probably can engage in that too. But the overthinking people, so if you find yourself, and this is probably because you have this selective assertiveness about you, you might find yourself around all these people that has potential to be ambitious or assertive, but then shit don't get done because everybody starts to get into overthinking. You might find yourself getting thrust into these scenarios like this or inviting things like this. And that's where that comes from. You know. Um, so that shows up right there too. Okay. So now we look at some of these energetic in line with these unfavorable attractions, what goes on. So these inside the Living Soul Numerology System, we don't just take one element and just solely treat it independently. We know they're connected to the other ones, and there's other different there's other different factors that we're looking at. But when I look at the common element or elements that are probably the drivers behind these things that you might attract or these things you might wrestle against or with in relationships is one sequence is the metal, air, and the water, and the other sequence is with the fire, air, and the water. And so what jumps up real fast is the air and the water. So that emotional flooding piece I was talking about, this not this um, this communication faltering that might occur with you. This is can kind of find itself flooding inside your relationships, um, especially when you have that. So the funny thing is, though, you have an affinity, you have a high appreciation and attraction for the water. So it's like one end, the water can be the thing that kind of irritates you, emotionalist. Oh my God, you took it to this way over here, and most you can't stand that. But at the same time, is you also are drawn to people that brings that when they're balanced emotionally, they bring that emotional refreshness to you, that sense of clarity. Because one aspect, it heightens your intuitiveness that you have. You have the six and you have the four. So those are and they have air in it. So there's an intuitive part. And I think subconsciously you look at it is that you desire that intuitive activation. And that intuitive activation will come from people that have a nice amount of water and a nice amount of air. So, but on the other end, when people are imbalanced with the water, it's not work well with you. But when people are balancing their water, or they got a nice amount of water, and they use it effectively for themselves and for others, you draw to that as you should, because why? It activates this intuitiveness desire that you have that you might not always be fully in because you wrestle with logic and intuitive thinking. You wrestle with logic and intuitive thinking. And then relationship wise, you favor a masculine hierarchy. So in all of that, the intuitiveness gets can get easily suppressed. But there's a part of you, because your grounding factor that you feel grounded in, you feel grounded in your six. So there's an intuitiveness that is still there. So that intuitiveness refers to introspection. That's why you probably value introspection. It helps you feel grounded. And then inspiration, which is very big. That's a domain that oversees the earth, the astral earth alignment, and the actual six. So there's a strong connection there, that comes across. And also now that rolls over, when we talk about your dominant elements, you start looking at the fire, right? Fire is about motivation and inspiration. So interesting is that your intuitiveness that you desire, which is from your androgynous aspect of you, wants that. It craves that because Earth oversees relationships. So there's a lot about the Earth position with your numbers is that you also need it. So again, it goes back to the nuances with you that I was saying, the missignaling. So can you, yeah, you can even that out, because the more you understand it, now it doesn't become a problem because you understand these different other dimensions of yourself when you're inside a relationship. And typically shows, again, you got a lot of fire. That's why you probably see more short stinted or short burst relationships, and you don't really see long enduring ones, is because these nuances you do have that comes across, in your energy field that you project. And so whether you might realize or not, but someone is like, especially you bring in people that's not aligned with you, there's a lot of missignaling. So the thing about it, like all these missed signals, I gotta filter through this, I gotta filter through that, I gotta filter through that. So by the time they get to you, they're tired, they're exhausted. And then all of a sudden you got another demand now. When they're tired, and you're like, well, I want this. And they're like, I ain't got to give. So what happens is when you get to this point, so I ain't got to give, now they emotionally are checking out. So now the nemesis with your water kicks in. Okay. And um, so at the end of the day is this is what your attractions um, entails. Okay. And so there's a lot of missignaling. Again, I want to say this is not a negative. Well, it is a negative. I mean, it's you can work it well because you have this cross relatability about you. So let me play that. So the missing a lot of times when I go over a lot of people's profiles and I see people that are liable to do a lot of missignaling. Some people it's just part of the interview. Some people it's part of dark psychology. So let me be clear with that. Some of you know I've been talking a lot about dark psychology, and you get that book too. All right, support a brother. Now, there's a dark psychology where people try to do missignaling, and it's for dark reasons or supporting their shadow reasons. This individual is not shadow, it's not dark. It can show as a shadow because it's a part that they need to integrate because they want to be more direct in their signaling. But this individual is not a dark psychology. I've seen some people that's more dark and they just got all this missignaling because where the hell they got going on. They got misalignments, keep choosing misalignment, they're chasing this, chasing that, and they try to put it all together and then trying to present it and trying to invite and command people to align with it, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't really don't make sense to them, but because they want a sense of control and they feel they got an edge, they're gonna try to keep selling that, but it keeps working against them. This individual, this woman, that's not what you got going on. It's just that you have cross capabilities that can deliver equally a certain result or a certain experience each time. The problem is when you get more logical, right? And that's that battle between your logic and your intuitive side. You're more logical. Because think about masculine energy. Masculine energy, the one part of it is it's going to move forward and it might not be mindful of sensitivities, right? Or things that, so the intuitiveness piece is important because it helps you to be mindful when to put the pressure on or to plow through or when to just kind of just dial back. And that's a skill set, right? That's a skill set we have to have in relationships. And that ties to what I was saying earlier, that ties to the skill set more than likely to people with strong androgynous capabilities or alignments or more neutral alignments. So that in the sense of your elements of attraction, you really can draw a lot from that. Okay. And so that's what we have right there. So before I pop off of here, let me see what some of y'all have to say. I know I kind of went a little bit longer than normal, but it's all good. You help me see the difference in between the balanced and imbalanced water. Yes, cool. Cool. So if you want me to do your elements of attraction anonymously, again, just email Wisdom Therapeutics 1 Gmail, or you can text 1-844 5 Wisdom. Also, I highly encourage y'all to grab the book, okay? Elements of Attraction. This is all in there. I'm just demonstrating what's inside the book. Now, some of you are in the Soul House. We'll do our private meeting and go over some of this stuff, but it's right here. So if some of you are like, I'm trying to understand my attractions and my situation, my experiences, get the book, right? Get the book. Get the book. Download it. It's a tool. You'll always be able to go back to it. And this is what we do. And so I appreciate everybody supporting and just to be transparent. It's always feels good to know that people are locked into this because this is not something that's always, always sexy or really goes viral, like that per se. I'm not really looking for, so it's good for people to kind of connect and they see and they resonate with it and they give life to it. So by you getting the books and by, and becoming part of, the group, the community, it gives this stuff energy. And then it begins, after a while, allows me to begin to share more and to produce more or network with other people that can bring about these certain things for you, right? So that's how it works. So again, appreciate everybody. We'll chime back down. Share this so we kind of get out there so YouTube knows that people likes this. Well, someone says, I got the book, but you got to work the book. Do the assessments. Very powerful. Yes, thank you. So I appreciate everybody rocking with this. And again, hey, one love.